Hello, and welcome to our webinar, Graphic Novels for Adults and Young Adults. I'm Sarah Hunter, Books for Youth and Graphic Novels Editor at Booklist. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. Today's slide presentation and title list were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the links located there. You can also download the slides and title list by typing the URL on this screen into your web browser. If you have any trouble, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a section for Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions, and we'll pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the live transcript icon on the toolbar mentioned earlier. From there, you can select Show or Hide Subtitles from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting Caption Settings. And finally, Booklist expects all participants to maintain an atmosphere of respect and fairness. Anyone who violates this standard of behavior, including engaging in any form of harassment, may, at the discretion of the organizers, be immediately removed. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Holly Aitchison, Marketing Manager at IDW Press, Katie Sains, Director of Marketing at Oni Press, Ashley Kronsberg, Marketing Manager at Diamond Book Distributors, and Jennifer Chan, Executive Director of Sales and Marketing at Fantagraphics Books. We will kick things off today with Holly Aitchison. Holly has been a part of the comics publishing industry for nearly a decade with an extensive background in operations, sales, retail, e-commerce, marketing, and client relations that has led people Holly views as important to call them a bard in a comics Swiss Army knife. Holly thinks those folks are being nice, but has in fact spec'd into multiple classes, that's a nerd joke for you, and thus appreciates the recognition. They began their comics career at Boom Studios, where they helped build and grow the company's sales team with a focus on book and library market spaces. They've also spent time at prestigious publishers Oni Press and Humanoids, where they've been proud to contribute to a number of incredible projects. In addition to working on the publishing side, Holly has written for a few anthologies and recently translated their first graphic novel, Hanami, coming soon from Humanoids. Holly is terrible at writing bios, but is truly excited to be here. Librarians are the best. Thanks for being here today, Holly.
So thank you for the intro. I know I wrote it, but I forgot everything I said in in my bio. It's so great to be here with all of you. I'm the marketing manager at IDW Publishing for the book market side, and I handle all marketing for Top Shelf. Our presentation is going to cover spring and summer. My slide apparently broke. We can go to the next slide, Grace. So in case you don't know IDW, we've been around for 25 years. This year is our 25th anniversary, which is really exciting to me. We cover everything from licensed titles, including things like Star Trek, Godzilla. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is probably our biggest title, maybe ever. We also have a number of really fantastic original titles, including classics like 30 Days of Night, Lock and Key, and then new titles like Hunger in the Dusk and Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. We can go to the next slide. Top Shelf, which is an imprint of IDW, has also been around for over 25 years, I believe. I think this is year 26 or 27 for our Top Shelf. We are known for prestige nonfiction, genre-busting stories, a number of different titles like March, They Called Us Enemy. Those are two of our biggest. Also, I apologize, my cat will be my assistant today. And we have received a number of GLAAD Award nominations for books like Cosmo Nights and Donuts and Doom. We can go to the next slide. So I'm going to start off with IDW. I'm not going to touch on licensed at all today because I'd rather focus on some of our original books that I think would be a great fit for your libraries. We're going to kick things off with The Hunger in the Dusk. We can go to the next slide. This is an ongoing series currently by G. Willow Wilson and Chris Wildgoose. It's essentially a high fantasy tale of orcs and humans who have been at each other's throats for generations until an ancient enemy is revived and begins to kill indiscriminately. So they have to band together and make political alliances. At the heart of it is two couples that are having to go into sort of political marriage on one side and then a love story on the other. And it's all about loyalty and how we navigate complex situations like that. We can go to the next slide. To me, the art is incredible. Chris Wildgoose is just my cat muted me for a second there. We can go to the next slide. But you can see the colors are incredible. There's just it's a really engaging story. Before I started with the team, this was one that I was really, really excited to begin working on. We can go to the next slide. Yeah, that's The Hunger in the Dusk. Sorry, I was distracted by Q&A popping up. We can go to the next slide. The next book I want to touch on is Taka. This is an OGN that is due out later this spring. It is about a Taka the teen delinquent, and she's a ne'er-do-well who's up to all kinds of shenanigans regularly and doesn't care if anybody, believes in her or trusts her. We can go to the next slide. It's a heavily manga influenced story. Oh God, now I have two cats on me. It's a heavily manga influenced story. You can see it in all of the art, especially if you're familiar with kind of 90s, early aughts storytelling. It's so heavily drawing on those influences. We can go to the next slide. So she accidentally unleashes this horde of ancient robots that are set to destroy the world. And instead, she has to fight them as a mech fighter, but she is still the teen delinquent. So, she's got to keep up her rep. So it's a very fun book. We can go to the next slide. And yes, that is due out this spring. And I noticed people wanted age ranges. Hunger in the Dusk is going to be like 13 plus, I would say. It's like a YA plus. There's just a lot of violence. Most of it's not particularly you're not going to see super graphic things, but it's a book about war. Taka, I would say, is again, YA, but it would be 12 and up. We can go to the next slide. Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. This is a mature book. So this book is about a serial killer, a small town serial killer who has one rule, which is she doesn't hunt in her own hometown. This is very much like Dexter meets Richard Scarry. We can go to the next slide. So in her hometown, she never hunts there, and she quickly discovers that another serial killer has begun working in her hometown when bodies start to pile up. And she has to help make sure that they catch whoever is actually doing this so that she doesn't find herself in the crosshairs of the sheriff. We can go to the next slide. So it's a beautifully illustrated book. Patrick Horvath is an incredible talent. This is, I believe, his first work. It's currently in single issues. The collection comes out actually in September, so it's a little bit later, but I really wanted to make sure I talked about this one. We can go to the next slide. And this is why it's mature. You can see it's pretty bloody. It is about a serial killer. It is also one of my favorite books of ours this year. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it. I'm not super big into slasher horrors, but it's really good and the art is incredible. I hope you all will check it out. Definitely drop me an email if you want to check out a PDF of this one or any of our other titles. We can go to the next slide. The other one I wanted to touch on really quickly is a series called Earth Divers. It's by Stephen Graham Jones, who you would know from The Only Good Indians, My Heart is a Chainsaw. he's got a bunch of books. He's a fantastic writer. So this is his original work with David John Felice, who is the artist on the book. He developed a lot of the ongoing story with that. Right now, we are committed to at least 3 books on this one. It is coming out in singles first. So we can go to the next slide. These are just a few preview pages from Kill Columbus. Again, this is one that I would say is like teen and up just because of the content. It's very much based on activism. So these are, thank you, Biz. This is a group of time traveling Indigenous activists who are going back in time to initially kill Columbus. And then it kind of goes from there. There's one book in the Ice Age, and the third book is in 1776. So it's a really interesting series. I really like it. We can go to the next slide. And, you know, Stephen Graham Jones is freaking fantastic. So I feel like it's a home run that a lot of people maybe missed. We can go to the next slide. I'm going to talk about Top Shelf. As I mentioned, I am the Top Shelf marketing manager. That is my primary role at IDW. We can go to the next slide. And today I just want to talk about a few books on the Top Shelf side, beginning with In Utero, which just came out. So when I started, this was the book that I didn't believe would reach the hype that had been set for it, because I was told it was like Akira and Annihilation and Neon Genesis Evangelion and Aliens and all these things that I was like, that's a high bar to put anything at. But it actually does that. So it's a story of a little girl who 12 years after a horrible explosion destroys part of the town, the city that she lives in Australia. She is dropped off at this abandoned, dilapidated mall by her mom for it's supposed to be a holiday camp. And she gets there, and it's in an abandoned mall. And she makes friends with this teen girl who isn't exactly what she seems. We can go to the next slide. The art is absolutely incredible. It's a cosmic coming of age story. So I don't want to spoil it, because this is one I went into with very little knowledge. I love skulls, which any of you who know me, which might be several of you, because I love librarians. I love skulls. So that immediately drew me to this book. But we can go to the next slide. It's a story of friendship, and we can go to the next slide. And creepy monsters. So if you see on the left here, that's kind of that's the vibe of why it gets into the alien territory. The end of it is a really like cataclysmic battle. It's so cool and great, and I can't even be coherent talking about it sometimes. Very heavily manga influenced. It's been getting a ton of rave reviews. I love it. I highly recommend it. This one is like another, I'd say YA, maybe mature middle grade. It's somebody said that if your kid likes Stranger Things, they can do this book. All right, we can go to the next one. The next book I want to talk about is Mary Tyler Moorhawk. This book comes out in about a week. We've been describing it as Johnny Quest by way of House of Leaves. It's got big Infinite Jest vibes. So it is a book that combines sequential art, photography, prose. It's the conceit of the book is that writer Dave Baker receives this package on his doorstep that introduces him to Mary Tyler Moorhawk, which is this defunct TV series that maybe also had a comic book 100 years in the past. And so he deep dives into this whole world of trying to track down the original creator, who is also named Dave Baker. We can go to the next slide. So it combines really incredible artwork. It has my favorite character, maybe of any book of the past year, Cutie Boy. He's the world's nicest robot. He acquires power by receiving compliments. So sometimes he'll have to say things like, I need a little bit of a boost, gang. And they'll be like, you're looking extra shiny today. And I love that. We can go to the next slide. So I'm going to pick this up a little bit. So we can go to the next slide. So you can see the sequential art is really detailed, very intricate line work. There's also a ton of photography and prose, so it reads as like a cohesive piece. You can go to the next slide. And we can go to the next slide. Sorry, I'm going to kind of clip through this a little bit quickly. All right. So you can see more photography. It's all like, it all kind of clumps together. The idea is very much like physical media doesn't exist in this future so much. So it's really good. It's about creativity and I love it. We can go to the next slide. Wolf Pitch. If any of you read Donuts and Doom, which I hope you did, it was GLAAD nominated, fantastic book. This is the same creator. This is about a three-piece band that is made up of a werewolf bassist who has been alienating every other local band that she's been in for years. The ghost of a legendary jazz pianist who can't play a solo anymore because she died under auspicious circumstances. And then their drummer is just a really mean girl who is incredibly talented. It's all about them trying to win the battle of the bands to defeat Delilah, the drummer's evil former band. It's very cute. This is one that, again, YA. It's LGBTQ. There's like a little bit of a romantic thing, but it also deals with having, oh, we can go to the next slide. So you can see Delilah is just mean girl, mean hot girl, LGBTQ graphic novel with a mean hot girl. I love it. Next slide. So it's very, very funny. I love this book. It's coming out later this summer. I do have a PDF available if anybody wants to check that out. We're going to begin sending that out for things soon. And we can go to the next slide. And that's it. Yay. I did it. I made it in time. So sorry I had to rush there at the end. I would love to chat with any of you in the future. Please feel free to drop me an email. My email is holly@topshelfcomics.com, or you can reach out to us at sales@idwpublishing.com. And we're distributed by Penguin Random House. That's what I got for you. So excited because Katie is next and Katie's the best.
Thank you so much, Holly. And you're right. Next, we'll be joined by Katie Sains. Katie is the director of marketing at Oni Press. She began her career in publishing in the marketing department at Lion Forge Comics before joining the Oni Press team in 2019. Katie resides in the greater St. Louis, Missouri area with her rambunctious puppy and is happy to say her local library is only a short walk away. Take it away, Katie.
Hey, everybody. As Sarah was so nice to introduce me, my name is Katie Sains. I'm the director of marketing here at Oni Press. And Oni Press has been around since 1997, so about 25 years. You probably know us from books such as Kay O'Neill's Tea Dragon Society series, Brenna Thumler's Sheets trilogy, and of course, Brian Lee O'Malley's mega popular Scott Pilgrim, which is celebrating 20 years this year, and was recently made into a hit Netflix anime. So we have a full lineup of amazing titles for you today. So let's dive on in so you can find your next great read. Next. First up, we have The Happy Shop by debut creator Brittany Long Olsen. Next. The Happy Shop follows 11-year-old Darcy, who thinks she's found the answer to her problems when she discovers a store selling happy feelings. But when she accidentally witnesses a sad feeling at work, she begins to wonder, is happiness really the only emotion people need? Next, this book explores social emotional intelligence in its discussion of the value of experiencing the whole range of human emotions. It's perfect for fans of Disney Pixar's Inside Out or Maya K. Nguyen's Pilu of the Woods. Next. One of the things that I love about The Happy Shop is that it exists in a world just like ours, and that magical realism really leaves readers feeling like they too could discover a happy shop lurking right around the corner in their own town. Next. So The Happy Shop has received a starred review from School Library Journal, and it will be available next week on February 13th, so absolutely make sure to pick this one up for your middle grade audiences. Next. Before we hop into some more adult titles, we wanted to mention a couple of continuing kids series. Each of the titles shown here can be read as a standalone or in conjunction with the other books. First is Choose Your Own Adventure, Forecast from Stonehenge. This is the third in our officially licensed Choose Your Own Adventure graphic novel series. This one takes readers as a detective into London's underground to explore the secrets of the famous prehistoric monument Stonehenge. It's written by acclaimed writer Stephanie Phillips, illustrated by Danny Bellino, and comes out in April. Then, coming in June, we have the second standalone Laugh Out Loud adventure from H.F. Brownfield and Kayla Combs in Quinelope and the Mystery of the Missing Moon. This series is perfect for fans of Dogman and investigators, but it puts an entirely fresh twist on classic middle grade humor stories. One of the things that I particularly love is that you get to see a female presenting protagonist with Quinelope, which is something that you don't always see in middle grade humor. And I also love that it has dyslexia-friendly font, so it makes it more accessible for a wide variety of readers. And then finally, coming out in August, we have Frankie and the Beastly Bog Song from creator Caitlin Rose Boyle. So young readers will join Frankie Ferry in her quest to uncover just what creepy creatures are making that mysterious music that's keeping her up at night. This book includes real facts about animals, insects, and arachnids, and encourages exploration and observation. I also love that it shows some very positive women in STEAM representation, as Frankie Ferry's mom is her scientist hero, and you gotta love that. Next. Transitioning into our adult titles today, we have I Feel Awful, Thanks by Laura Pickle. And if that isn't a relatable title, I don't know what is. Next. I Feel Awful Thanks takes readers into a world of swirling emotions and powerful potions, as Joanna, who's a young witch, has just landed her dream job in London. Next. But she's soon going to find out that even a dream job can't keep stress, anxiety, work burnout, and catty coworkers at bay. Next. So this book really explores the positive power of therapy, as Joanna's mental health concerns are only alleviated when she starts seeking the help of a professional therapist. Next. And like a lot of Oni favorites, like mooncakes or sheets, I Feel Awful Thanks does tackle some heavier emotional topics, but it does so with that sweetly spooky exterior that makes it very appealing to a wide variety of audience. But this one is absolutely perfect for new adults who are finding their way in the working world and trying to balance all of the things that come with that. So this one will be released this March. Next. So speaking of perfect new adult reads, this next title is sure to appeal to romantasy fans. Covenant is Lysandra Vung's hit supernatural action webtoon, which is coming to print for the very first time ever this spring. Next. For anyone unfamiliar with Covenant, I'm going to give you a quick idea of the kind of stats this book has. It has over 21 million reads on Webtoon and an average 9.64 out of 10 star rating, which is incredible. So it's already got a big readership. Next. And it follows a powerful exorcist who has no faith in God, who's tasked with protecting a seemingly normal human from rising demonic forces. I say seemingly normal because this human has a lot of secrets of his own. Next. So these two college boys with very different personalities begin to fall in love in this slow burn queer romance set amidst demons, an impending war, questions of faith, and more. Next. So if you're looking for plenty of action, hot tattooed priests, and a queer supernatural fantasy romance, look no further than Covenant. Next. This first volume will cover Webtoon episodes 0 through 18, and it's been beautifully reformatted to 6x9 size. Sometimes when you translate those Webtoons into print, it can get a little wonky, but this one has been done just absolutely beautifully. So make sure to check it out on April 16th. Next. Keeping in the fantasy realm, our next book, Army of One by Tony Lee and Nishan Lee, will transport readers across the multiverse. Next. Carrie Taylor believes herself to be a normal teen girl until the day the multiverses come crashing into her life, revealing that she's actually a clone of Sister Fortune, the character featured in the top left panel over there. And Sister Fortune was one of the most powerful sorceresses of all time. Next. So Carrie is forced to pick up Sister Fortune's war with Brother Havoc and band together with a team of alternate Carries from across the multiverses on a mission to unite all of the Carries and fulfill an ages-old prophecy before they're destroyed forever. Next. This series is perfect for fans of multiversal fantasy and asks the question, what is truth and who can you trust? As every version of the world that Carrie goes to has a different story about the events that unfolded that led to this war that she's now caught in the middle of. Next. This first volume of Army of One will be releasing March 5th, and readers who immediately want to grab more are in luck since we will be following it with a sequel this fall. Next. So if you're hearing all of these sci-fi fantasy titles and dying for more, Xeno should absolutely be next on your reading list. Next. This subversive sci-fi anthology has been called a who's who of sci-fi comics creators. You're going to see everyone from comics masters like Phil Hester and David Lapham, alongside new voices in sci-fi comics such as Nick Cagnetti and Alyssa Sala. Next. So every chapter of this anthology is about 10 pages, but each one contains like a fully formed story, and you're going to get a taste of some truly exciting sci-fi. So in this one that's on the screen right now, there's one where the neighbors are slowly replacing the population with rabbit aliens. Next. And on this next slide right here, we have a video game that you shoot up your arm like heroin, only to wake up the next morning and wonder if the things that you did in the game actually happened in real life. Next. Xeno is perfect for fans of psychedelia sci-fi, cyberpunk dystopia, and heavy metal magazine. And it also just released in January, so it is available right now. Next. Shifting gears a little bit, we have some absolutely fantastic mystery and horror books releasing this spring, starting with Hobtown Mystery Stories, Volume 1, The Case of the Missing Men. Next. Hobtown Mystery Stories can be described as Nancy Drew meets Twin Peaks, so expect a sort of cozy mystery nostalgia ramped up with a sharp adult supernatural edge. Next. And it follows a group of teen detectives in a small rural Canadian town called Hobtown as they catch wind of a series of disappearances of men in their community. It turns out that 6 men have gone missing this year alone, and no one is asking why, which is highly suspect. So as the group investigates, things take a turn for the creepy when they find out that some of the answers they're seeking might not have answers that are of this world. They might be a little bit supernatural. Next. This series is 1 part mystery, 1 part horror, and 1 part coming of age, as these teens are investigating the traumas that haunt and horrify across generations. Next. This series has a slew of critical acclaim. It's got starred reviews from Booklist and Publishers Weekly. It's got great reviews in publications like the New York Times and the Toronto Star. And this is the very first time that this series will be available in color. It was originally published in black and white from a small press out of Canada. So it's the first time that it'll be widely available in the US and the first time ever in color. And you can find it April 23rd. Next. If you're loving those nostalgic vibes, trust me, like we are too, this next book will take that and ramp it up even more by subverting the horror genre in a way you've never seen before, and that would be Dwellings by J. Stevens. Next. If you've ever wanted Casper the Friendly Ghost paired with gruesome murder, this is the series for you. It's a super unsettling mashup of retro cute and after midnight scaries, and it's the perfect thing for horror fans who have grown tired of genre conventions. Next. So don't be fooled by the somewhat adorable little demons in this book. It's definitely not meant for kids or cowards, as we like to say. It's for mature readers only. There's going to be like a lot of very gruesome cartoon violence that happens in this, but I can say like Dwellings is unlike anything I've ever read before. It's completely fresh, but the style makes you feel like it's always existed and should have always existed. It's gonna be one of those that you find yourself thinking about long after you close the book. Next. And like I said before, Dwellings is by Emmy award-winning creator Jay Stevens. It was also recently named one of Publishers Weekly's top 10 anticipated comics for spring. And you can find a beautiful hardcover edition of this on shelves everywhere in April. Next. So speaking of creators who are doing exciting things in comics, Matt Luzanowski, the creator of Faceless in the Family, is the next title we are excited to show off today. Next. And as you can tell from these pages alone, this is comic storytelling at its most visionary. Every page of Faceless in the Family is this pristine, hyper-rendered line art in black and white. It's just perfect for any serious connoisseur of the comics medium. Next. The story is akin to a post-apocalyptic Wizard of Oz, where a band of misfits are joining together on a quest to their Emerald City, where they hope to find a missing piece of themselves. Next. Matt Luzanowski is one of the industry's most celebrated new artistic talents. He first rose to prominence with his Eisner Award debut, The Freak, and then also worked on Crimson Flower and Mind Management Bootleg. And next. Faceless in the Family has received just rave reviews and is going to be published in a gorgeous hardcover on July 9th. Next. I'm gonna speed through these next ones here since I don't want to take anybody else's time up, but first we have The Man from Maybe. Next, which is an upside down world where mutants die hard and dinosaurs can't be trusted. Next. It's an acidic Western full of action. It's drawn by indie cartoonist Shaky Kane. I think these pages speak for themselves as far as the kind of adventure you're in for with The Man from Maybe. Next. And find this one in stores May 28th. Next. And finally, today we have Eat Your Heart Out. Next. And this is a modern day fashion fairy tale following a recent high school grad who runs away from her mom to the Big Apple in pursuit of her dreams of being a fashion designer. Next. Once she's there, she's taken in by 7 friends in a brownstone, and her fairy tale begins. Next. So this is a story of found family and pursuing your passion. Next. And is perfect for new adults or older teens. You can find this one in stores in August. And with that, I'm going to pass things over to Ashley at Diamond.
Thank you so much, Katie. Our next presenter will be Ashley Kronsberg. Ashley is the marketing manager for Diamond Book Distributors and the editor of Diamond Bookshelf magazine. She has been with Diamond for almost a decade and oversees all lifecycle marketing for Diamond's client publishers. Along with creating and executing marketing plans for key titles, Ashley curates, edits, and publishes Diamond Bookshelf magazine, a triannual magazine providing resources to librarians and educators about comics and graphic novels. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thanks for attending today's webinar. We have a lot of great titles coming out this season, but first, some housekeeping. You can download a catalog of all of these titles and a few more by scanning the QR code at the top here. If you aren't already, please don't forget to sign up for our pop culture resource, Diamond Bookshelf, by scanning the QR in the center. Issue number 41 of our tri-annual magazine will be available this March, and it's going to have a special highlight on neurodivergent titles, so you're not going to want to miss it. And of course, give us a follow on any of your favorite social media platforms to stay up to date with the best in pop culture. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. Next slide. Hand-painted with colored ink and a watercolor technique, Black Panel Press presents Conquest, Julius Caesar's Gallic War. Based on the memoir of one of the most important figures in human history, Conquest dives into the mind of the military leader, exploring his strategies and tactics. This unique and vibrant telling includes bonus materials at the back explaining the research that went into producing this historically accurate book. Conquest takes the reader from Rome across Europe to Gaul as Caesar fights to expand the empire. This book will be out this month. Next. I Run to Make My Heart Beat is an exhilarating memoir about 18-year-old Nina's struggle for identity. As the daughter of a Black Muslim of Gambian origins and a Polish Jewish mother, Nina embraces track and field to turn her differences into strength. I Run to Make My Heart Beat is a beautifully positive story about resilience and tolerance written by Rachel Kahn. The story is based on the author's real-life experience, and Kahn is also a university teacher now. I Run to Make My Heart Beat will be out this month for readers 13 and up. Next. This title is one of our highest, most important titles of the spring and summer. A Fox in My Brain follows Lou as she first experiences what she calls the darkness. After troubled years, she finally learns that the chaos in her brain is caused by her cyclothymia, a bipolar disorder that appears to her in the form of a fox. We join Lou in her journey to tame and embrace the fox, following her ups and downs throughout the years. The fun, manga-like duotone style art plays into the duality of Lou's condition and brings the reader deeper into her world. A Fox in My Brain will be available this April for readers 13 and up. Next. For our sci-fi lovers, we have new publisher Gungnir. Founded by former heavy metal magaziner Matt Medney, Gungnir strives to bring the most compelling stories into the sci-fi comic space. Now, Mutant Labs is not your typical science lab. The company is currently working on their potentially biggest breakthrough yet, a renewable energy device strong enough to power an entire city block, but small enough to fit in the palm of your paw. But with all great inventions, hubris is always a problem. With realities overlapping, we've now entered the Mutantverse, and it's up to the Mutant Cats to bring things back to reality. Mutant Cats Volume 1 will be available this May for readers 16 and up. Next. Here we have a graphic memoir. Apologies, wrong title. Here we have another anthology coming from a Wave Blue world. This is Becoming Who We Are, Real Stories About Growing Up Trans. Every story in this anthology is written by a trans and/or non-binary creator, and not only focuses on the experience of transitioning from childhood to adulthood, but also transitioning and gender fluidity. These stories are important because they not only express the experience of these individual real life experiences, but they also bring these realities to light. Next slide. Next, they say that marriage doesn't come with a manual, but now it does in graphic detail. I Do, I Don't is a graphic novel based on a couple who is going through struggles with their marriage. It is structured in the form of therapy session and is written by Shandrama Anderson, who is a licensed family therapist. Each chapter, the couple works through some kind of issue that happened over the week, and they break it down with their therapist. You get to see their inner thoughts as well as the things that they say out loud. And at the end of each chapter, there is a practice page that allows the reader to actually use these tools in their real life experiences and take away more than just what's coming out in the story. Next slide. Next, we've got Her Frankenstein. This is coming from Living the Line, who Junji Ito himself called this title frightening but moving. Now they're bringing it back to the forefront of horror manga. Her Frankenstein is a key, previously unknown title in the development of the horror genre in Japan. Norikazu Kawashima's humanism and unerring observation gives the story a reality uncommon to this type of fantasy graphic novel. Her Frankenstein will be available this May for readers 13 and up. Next. A timeless tale between censorship and freedom, this beautifully illustrated fable about the perils of banning books parallels for the times we live in now. The caliphate has been blessed with a period of peace, but when the Caliph Abd al-Rahman III passes away, his 10-year-old son is too young to take his place. So one of his viziers, Amir, seizes the opportunity to take power. From there, he starts banning books, and we unravel the story that parallels today. The Library Mule of Cordoba will be available this June from Blaze for readers 13 and up. Next. Here we have a Clerky slice of life collection about being, oops, sorry, wrong title. Here we have Everything Eventually Connects. This is a title by Sarah Firth that focuses on the threads about life, death, relationships, nature, and sex converging in this engrossing, funny, serious debut graphic novel. This honest, profound, and profane are all framed by illustrations that are sumptuous, poignant, and artful. This will be coming out in June from Graphic Mundi for readers 16 and up. Next slide. And Mankind Created the Gods. This is also coming out from Graphic Mundi this June. This is an artful adaptation of Pascal Boyer's now classic work on the cognitive understanding of religion. Boyer himself has actually supported this work, and it is illustrated by Joseph Behe, who once he saw Boyer's work, couldn't help himself from creating this adaptation that gives it a more understandable way to ask these perennial questions about belief, humanity, and religion. This will be out in June for readers 16 and up. Next. And here we have a quirky slice of life collection about being a young female isopod in a modern, ever-changing world. NYC-based author Allison Conway's colorful, anthropomorphized insects turn the everyday exciting, from going to the farmer's market, having drinks with some girlfriends, or being sick at home on the couch. Conway's multi-species characters explore the different ways women relate to one another in modern city life and reflect the way our own bodies change throughout our lives. This book will be available this June from Black Panel Press, readers 12 and up. Next slide. That's it for my presentation. If you have any questions or would like to read any of the books from our publishers, they can all be accessed on Edelweiss via the topmost QR code, or you can email me. Thank you again so much for your time today. I will pass it on to Jennifer.
Thanks so much, Ashley. Our final presentation will come from Jennifer Chan. Following her passion as a consummate reader and lover of art, graphic design, and comics, Jennifer began her career working in bookstores soon after graduating from Boston University. She moved into the publishing world in 2001, working in trade sales for W.W. Norton, PRH Client Services, and for a number of independent art publishers. She is currently the executive director of sales and marketing at Fantagraphics Books. Thanks for being here, Jennifer. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Sarah. Hi, everyone. Thanks very much for tuning in. First up, I just want to briefly mention my favorite thing is Monsters Book 2, which I presented before, but I wanted to note there's a new on sale date, which is May 28th. And we also have a digital ARC of the first 200 pages, which is now available for download on Edelweiss and NetGalley. Next slide. Today, I'll be presenting highlights from our spring list and special sneak previews of our summer 2024 list. Please note that age ranges are included on each title slide along with the on sale dates in red. First up is Mark Twain's War Prayer, adapted and interpreted by Seymour Quast. He is one of the most prominent American graphic designers of the 20th century. He founded Pushpin Studios with Edward Sorel and Milton Glaser, and by the 1960s was doing a lot of turning his talents to anti-war fake propaganda images, a polemic counterpoint to the war in Vietnam. Next slide. Mark Twain probably needs no introduction, but this was a piece he wrote that he didn't think an audience would actually take in his lifetime. By the time he wrote it, he was 70 and had lived through 14 wars waged by the US on other countries. Next slide. It's a compelling prose poem about the dangers of blind patriotism and of how patriotism is weaponized in order to get young people to throw their bodies into the mortar of war for no great benefit for themselves, for their families, or for the citizenry. Next slide. At the time, Twain clearly saw the sort of things that still go on in propaganda and recruitment, and the media ginning up pro-war sentiments to no good end. And it's still timely now as ever. His primary illustrator in his lifetime, Daniel Beard, urged him to put this out and wanted to illustrate it, but Twain said no. Next slide. Quast is 92 years old, but still working every day in his studio. And this book, in some ways, is the culmination of a lot of his work over the years. He's bringing his drawing, his design, his history of typography. There's pastel paintings, there's computer colors and collage. He's really putting so much of his great experience and his decades of anti-war imagery into this book. Next slide. Next is You and a Bike and a Road by Eleanor Davis. Davis has a couple of books with Fantagraphics, her short story collection, How to Be Happy, and her essay in comics form, Why Art. This book was originally published by the influential indie arts publisher Oni Press, and we're really happy to bring this other classic from Davis's catalog back into print again. Next slide. This is her travelogue of a road trip by bicycle from Tucson, Arizona to Athens, Georgia. Her dad has built her a bike. She goes to pick it up in Arizona and rides it all the way home to her husband in Georgia. It's half diary on the road and half drawing pictures of what she saw later with deeper thoughts, but it all really reads as one. Next slide. The only difference between the styles is that the on the road is drawn in pen and the after the facts are drawn in pencil. But it's very much an internal examination, while also tracking the physical toll of the journey and emotional encounters with the people she meets and the landscapes along the way. Next slide. It's a lovely little standalone book from Eleanor Davis, and we're excited to bring it back into print in this new hardcover edition. Next slide. In June, we have Hogbook and Laser Eyes by Maria Bamford and Scott Marvel Cassidy. Next slide. Newly single 40-somethings, Bamford and Cassidy, each signed up on the dating site OkCupid under the respective usernames Hogbook and Laser Eyes. They went on a date and then another, and soon, despite history of bipolar II disorder and unhealthy relationships for each of them, they fell in love and were married in 2015. Next slide. We view all of this through the prism of their pug housemates, including Blueberry and Bert, and the elderly bonded pair, Betty and Arnold. Next slide. Cassidy's fine art training translates with ease into graphic storytelling with a naturalistic illustrative style that is a pitch-perfect match for Bamford's comic timing, making this graphic memoir a beautifully illustrated love story told by some incredibly charming pugs. Next slide. Up next is Never Again Will I Visit Auschwitz by Ari Richter. This is an incredibly powerful, compelling, and dense work about the author reflecting on his Jewish heritage in the lineage of his family. It starts with him growing up in Tampa, Florida, where although he experienced some sense of otherness and some anti-Semitism, he grew up in a largely secular environment and did not feel connected to his Jewish roots until he moved to New York City, where he decided he wanted to explore his Jewish history and discovered that 3 of his grandparents had suffered in Nazi Germany, and they had been interned in Auschwitz and Buchenwald. Next slide. The book is about him learning about his family's past and bringing that forward and trying to figure out how that affects him as a Jew and as a working artist in the present day. The book alternates between his contemporary life, which are told in pen and ink, black and white, and then he also has parts of the book where he illustrates his grandparents' unpublished memoirs. Next slide. He discovered 2 of his family members actually wrote memoirs about their lives in Germany and their time in the concentration camps, and he illustrates those in full color. Those are, of course, incredibly harrowing, and he doesn't flinch from illustrating the worst atrocities that his relatives experienced. Next slide. At the heart of this book is a reflection of the emotional capacity of revisiting one's own family history. It's an incredibly thoughtful and reflective graphic novel that explores the past and then brings the past into the present. It draws from primary sources. It is incredibly well-researched and is a powerful tool for teaching recent history that occurred in readers' lifetimes. Next slide. Delight, a story of Hieronymus Bosch. This is Guy Caldwell, who's one of the later generation of underground cartoonists working in the 1970s. He hasn't done a full graphic novel in over 30 years, and this is his magnum opus. Next slide. Delight is a graphic story of Hieronymus Bosch and the creation of his most famous work, The Garden of Earthly Delights. The real facts of Bosch's life, and specifically the commissioning of his triptych, are scant at best. Basically, it's known where he lived and that this was a commissioned work. Caldwell has taken the location, which is known to be a religious enclave, and builds a narrative. There is a split within Bosch himself of wanting to create a work that honors God as he sees it, with the demands of his commercial commission, who want to see lots of lascivious activity in the Garden of Eden before the fall, and how he manages that within himself and against the religious strictures of the town and the church. Next slide. The book immerses you in the 15th century Netherlands art world, and by necessity, the theocratic environment in which a painter had to create in and the politics involved. Next slide. This imaginatively conceived graphic biography is Caldwell's crowning achievement in a cartooning career begun in the underground comics movement of the 70s and marked by risk-taking and political engagement. Next slide. Continuing Fantagraphics' project to reprint Marvel Comics' 1950s genre titles, this volume compiles the first of what became the industry's largest line of war books. Next slide. Forged in the crucible of the Korean War and produced by veterans of the Second World War, this volume's 8 issues present the brutality and grimness of armed combat by some of Atlas's most notable war artists and future comic stars, including Gene Colan, Russ Heath, Joe Manley, Dave Berg, and Norman Steinberg. Next slide. Originally a child spun off from the publisher's Men's Adventures publications. In the 9 years to follow, Atlas went on to produce over 500 comic book issues with war content across 34 different titles. Next slide. War Comics is where it all began, unseen in decades, scanned from the original books, restored and packaged as one large, beautiful hardcover volume. Next slide. Peter and Liza is the incredible debut book by Miroslav. He is a Croatian self-taught painter who himself was in the Croatian military during the Yugoslav wars of the 1990s. Next slide. The main character, Petar, is a Bohemian poet who does his 2-year conscription in the Yugoslavian army. And when he comes back, he finds himself adrift. The war has just brought about a lot of changes in society, and he's searching for purpose. And then he comes across Liza. Their meeting sparks something in each other where they find inspiration for himself to write poetry, for her to dance and perform. It's a really lovely story of these two sensitive souls who find each other and create this oasis in a war-torn country. Next slide. The standout of the book is the artwork. Each page is a full-sized gouache painting that shows the incredible detail of these bohemian environments, dive bars, and underground clubs. It really taps into both the physical and emotional landscape of the characters. The art and environment itself becomes an integral character in the book. Next slide. This is a really beautiful work that looks at a broken society and these very sensitive characters, how they're affected by war and how they weather these changes and come out of it stronger together. Next slide. Coming in August, we have Mothballs by Sole Otero. Buenos Aires, 2001. When Wilma passes away, few friends and relatives care to attend her funeral. This conspicuous absence sparks a curiosity of her 19-year-old granddaughter, Rocio, who moves into the house her grandmother has left her. In this home, haunted by memories, she delves into Wilma's life and uncovers a family history shrouded in tragedy. Next slide. Moving seamlessly between Italy in the 20th century and Argentina in the 21st century, Mothballs draws a poetic comparison between the lives of grandmother and granddaughter. Next slide. Both women are strong-willed and ambitious, eager to forge their own way, but face pressure from family and society to conform to the path set for them. At a crossroads in her own life, knowing well the isolation her grandmother felt, Rocio seeks to break free from the chain of history. Next slide. Mothballs chronicles fraught family dynamics with rare nuance and sensitivity, sprinkling in moments of tenderness, vulnerability, and whimsy amidst the pain. Next slide. A showcase of tour de force cartooning that marks Otero as a major talent in the global comic scene. Next slide. Also in August is The Farewell Song of Marcel Labrum, the first English language translation of Italian master Attilio Muscioluzzi. It is a rousing adventure story that takes place in the Middle East during World War II. Next slide. The first act of this thrilling two-part adventure takes place in Beirut in 1941, when renegade journalist Labrum crosses paths with the beautiful and mysterious American millionaire Carol Gibson, who the Germans suspect of being a spy. Next slide. With the help of Labrum, the young woman works to deliver a Jewish man wanted by the Germans to Palestine. Then in 1942, Labrum is captured during the Battle of Bir Hachem and becomes a prisoner of war. With his usual style and aplomb, and by the skin of his teeth, Labrum manages to narrowly escape death. Next slide. This title is Fantagraphics' first entry in its planned Muscioluzzi library, which will reprint all of his most significant works. He is one of the most iconic graphic stylists of the European comic scene, known for his elegant line and stunning craftsmanship. Next slide. Iris is the first presentation in English of the first Dutch graphic novel ever. It's an absolutely glorious piece of its time, drawn in 1968 in a lurid, brightly heavily colored pop art style. Next slide. The story itself is a critique of capitalism and the commodification of art. Iris, the main character, is seduced by an entrepreneur and essentially put through the pop idol machine via a reality show. She's constantly surveilled, and eventually she's replaced by AI. So it has a kind of pre-nascent vision based on what's happening today. Next slide. The artwork is playful and stylish, and in keeping with the story, it moves from genre to genre, from A Star is Born to a spy thriller to psychedelic hallucinatory freakout to dystopian science fiction. So it's a wild ride. Next slide. This edition includes an afterword and other supplementary materials, which provides fascinating context about the historical and artistic significance of the work and its restoration process. Next slide. And last but not least, we have Baraba. American audiences have grown familiar with international comics through an influx of European bande dessinée and Japanese manga, but there are vivacious creative scenes happening worldwide, notably in Brazil. This book is a single volume showcase of innovative Brazilian comics. Next slide. Baraba unites a diverse array of voices and styles under a unifying theme: deeply personal stories from experimental cartoonists. Each artist has uniquely interpreted this concept, creating all new work for English readers. Next slide. Resulting in a collection that encapsulates the intensity, political gravitas, and avant-garde spirit of the Brazilian comics community during one of the country's most challenging socio-political periods. The term Baraba, a Brazilian slang derived from brava, meaning angry, has been embraced as a symbol of something impressive and groundbreaking. Next slide. Originating from Brazil's edgy youth culture, the term is a compliment for individuals who exhibit unique and daring attitudes, an attitude exemplified by the bold and vibrant comics in this anthology. Next slide. That's it for me. Thanks again to all who registered and for tuning in. All the titles in my presentation are available on Edelweiss and NetGalley, where you can download digital galleys and previews. Please feel free to contact me if you want to join our catalog mail list or with any review copy requests or questions you may have. I also send out newsletters for both our adult and our children's titles, so please get in touch if you'd like to sign up, and be sure to check us out and follow us on social media as well. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And a huge thank you to all of today's wonderful panelists. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to today's video recording, slide presentation, title list, and a certificate of completion. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit www.booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones like those you see here. Staff training, in-services, local conference, Booklist can help. You can now request free copies of Booklist and Booklist Reader for upcoming staff training programs so you can help the next generation of library workers become Reader's Advisory and collection development superstars. Scan the QR code on the screen and visit our website or email info@booklistonline.com for more details. Mastering the art of Reader's Advisory involves ongoing study, both of major concepts that form the backbone of a good RA practice and of the skills that make your RA practice effective in the day-to-day. This series of Booklist workshops on Thursday, March 14th is designed to keep you up to speed on both the ideas and practice that will enhance your RA game. Visit the Booklist website to register now so you can learn from experts in the field about how genres relate to each other, how to talk to patrons about their leisure reading, and how to write an effective book annotation. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, and a huge thank you to our panelists and to our sponsors, IDW Press, Oni Press, Diamond Book Distributors, and Fantagraphics Books. This concludes today's webinar. See you next time.